To Module 4, Preventing Cross-Contamination. You're doing well, but there's still a lot to learn. So let's get moving. This module will cover how to spot food during receiving that may have been contaminated, how to prevent cross-contamination when storing, prepping, and serving food, how to handle and store chemicals to prevent cross-contamination, and, last but not least, the big 8 food allergens and how to prevent them from causing an allergic reaction. Like so much of food safety, it's not that hard to prevent cross-contamination. But when even little mistakes are made, the results can be serious, much like in this story.
While eating at a local diner, a boy ordered chocolate pudding for dessert. A few days later, he woke up with stomach cramps, vomiting, and diarrhea, and was taken to his doctor. Afterwards, the local health department conducted an investigation and found ground beef stored above desserts in the diner's walk-in cooler, as well as evidence that meat had dripped onto some of the desserts. 6 more customers contacted the health department with similar symptoms. It was later confirmed that the pathogen that caused the illness was E. coli, a type of bacteria commonly linked with raw ground beef.
Gross, right? The boy in the story got sick because raw meat dripped onto his pudding? Ugh. This is a good example of cross-contamination, where pathogens are transferred from one surface or food to another. In this instance, it happened while the food was being stored. But you have to look out for it way before that. Receiving is probably the first opportunity you'll have to prevent cross-contamination. When deliveries come in, you'll need to carefully check not only all food items for signs of contamination, but also the non-food items such as cups and napkins. Let's see if you can figure out whether these deliveries are safe to receive or not. Take a look. Should you accept this item or reject it? That's absolutely right. You should never accept items with dirty packaging. How about this one? Accept or reject? Good catch. You should always reject an item if its packaging is water-stained or discolored. What about this? Right. This meat must be rejected because it's leaking. Packaging should not have holes, tears, punctures, or other types of damage. We've all seen this kind of thing before. Accept or reject. Yep, just say no. This can is seriously dented and the food inside may be harmed. Never receive cans that are dented, rusty, or have swollen ends. So, you've made sure to receive only items that are safe, and you're feeling pretty good about yourself. Nice start, but you still have to prevent cross-contamination when storing food.
One of the most important things you can do is make sure food is stored in a designated area that isn't around chemicals, up against a wall, or on the floor. All of these things can cause food to become contaminated. Prevent contamination by storing food away from walls and at least 6 inches, 15 centimeters, off the floor. This makes it easier to clean underneath, too. Also, wrap or cover food before storing it to stop contaminants from falling into it. When choosing containers to store the food in, always make sure they're actually made to hold food. Never, ever store food in old chemical containers. Even if you clean them well, doing this could contaminate the food and cause foodborne illness. Also, it's just kind of gross.
Operations that store both raw food and ready-to-eat food need to take extra steps to prevent cross-contamination and keep food safe. Probably the best way to ensure safety in storage is to keep raw and ready-to-eat food completely separate. That goes for fruits and vegetables too, whether they're washed or not. That way, there's no chance these two types of food will touch or drip onto each other. Simple, right? Also, keep raw and ready-to-eat food separate when transporting it off-site. Of course, separate storage isn't always possible. If all of your food has to go in the same place, Make sure you use the correct top to bottom order. Ready-to-eat food goes on top. Right under that is seafood, then whole cuts of beef and pork, then ground meat and ground fish, and finally, whole and ground poultry is at the bottom. Where does this order come from? It's based on the minimum internal cooking temperatures of each food. So that's storing food in a nutshell. Though, of course, nutshells themselves are not safe for storing food, unless you're a squirrel. Moving on, let's take a crack at some review questions. Has this food been stored safely? Not quite. Yeah, not so much, right? This chicken hasn't been wrapped or covered, and you should always wrap or cover food before storing it to stop contaminants from falling into it. How about this? Unfortunately, you're right, but sadly, these shelves are very wrong. Raw ground beef has been stored above peppers, and raw pork chops right next to cut melon. If you can't store raw and ready-to-eat food separately, always follow correct top-to-bottom order. Ready-to-eat food above raw meat, seafood, or poultry, and ground meat below whole cuts of pork. Is this safe? Yep, it sure looks that way. The food has been stored in covered containers made for food, and it's also in a cooler, which is definitely designated for storing food. Remember the correct storage order for different types of food? Prove it by dragging each food to the right spot on these cooler shelves.
This may take a while.
Nicely done. If you have to store raw and ready-to-eat foods together, it should always be ready-to-eat foods on top, followed by seafood, then whole cuts of beef and pork, then ground meat and ground fish, and finally, whole and ground poultry on the bottom. Receiving? Check. Storage? Check. But you're not done yet. It's time to learn how to avoid cross-contamination when prepping food. Prepping food often means handling both raw and ready-to-eat food items. If you're not careful, pathogens can be transferred from one food to another and get people sick. How can you stay safe? Keep cutting boards, utensils, equipment, and workstations cleaned and sanitized. Don't allow ready-to-eat food to touch surfaces that have come in contact with raw meat, seafood, or poultry. So you want to prep raw meat, seafood, and poultry at a different time than ready-to-eat food when using the same prep table. Also, make sure to clean and sanitize work surfaces, utensils, and equipment between prepping each food item. Something else to watch for is contaminated produce. To stay safe, you'll want to keep both unwashed and ready-to-eat fruits and vegetables separate from raw meat, poultry, and seafood. Produce should always be washed before cutting it, cooking it, or combining it with other ingredients. So you'll also want to clean and sanitize the prep sink and work area before starting. When you do start washing produce, make sure to use running water that's slightly warmer than the food and pull apart leafy greens such as lettuce or spinach. If you soak or store produce in standing water or ice water, don't mix different items or multiple batches of the same item. And finally, refrigerate and hold sliced melons, cut tomatoes, and cut leafy greens at 41 degrees Fahrenheit, 5 degrees Celsius, or lower. Okay, now use all that newfound knowledge to choose which of the following people are prepping food correctly and which aren't.
Click each photo and listen to the person's story. Click yes if you think they're handling the food correctly, or click no if you don't.
After deboning raw chicken on a white cutting board, I use the same knife and cutting board to dice some onions.
Nope.
Yeah, tell her. The knife and cutting board should have been cleaned and sanitized before dicing those onions. Click each photo and listen to the person's story. Click yes if you think they're handling the food correctly, or click no if you don't.
I trimmed a raw roast on a red cutting board. Then I washed my hands, put on new gloves, and used a new knife to slice tomatoes on a green cutting board.
Right. This person did everything correctly. Hands were washed, gloves were changed, and a new knife and cutting board were used to slice the tomatoes. He's a prepping savant. Click each photo and listen to the person's story. Click yes if you think they're handling the food correctly, or click no if you don't.
I prep salads from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Then I clean and sanitize the prep table and fillet fish on it at 9:30 a.m.
Got it. There's nothing wrong here. The table was cleaned and sanitized between prepping the salad and the fish, and the ready-to-eat salads were prepped at a different time than the raw fish.
Cross-contamination isn't just about you watching what you do, but also protecting people from themselves at places like self-service areas. Take a look at what I mean. Cross-contamination can happen when customers refill dirty plates, reuse dirty utensils, pick up food with bare hands, or place their heads underneath the sneeze guard while reaching food. That's right. The clear glass above salad bars is actually called a sneeze guard. Try to get that image out of your mind. So you have to protect these areas from biological, chemical, and physical contaminants. How do you do this? By correctly labeling all food and providing separate utensils for each item. And, of course, keeping food under the sneeze guard will also help. Additionally, you should never let customers refill dirty plates or use dirty utensils. If you see them doing these things, politely ask them to use clean plates and utensils instead. And never serve ice that was used to keep food or beverages cold in a self-service area. There are all kinds of ways that people can cause cross-contamination easily when handling food, utensils, and equipment. Let's look at a few.
Surfaces that touch food are called food contact surfaces. Makes sense, right? Well, often the utensils and equipment you use have food contact surfaces. Plates, glasses, forks, and tongs are some examples. If you're not careful, you can contaminate these surfaces when handling them. Here's how to prevent this. Hold dishes by the bottom or edge, and glasses by the middle, bottom, or stem. And don't stack glasses when carrying them. A rack or tray works much better. Speaking of glasses, you might be tempted to use one to scoop ice. Don't. And don't use your bare hands either. Instead, use ice scoops or tongs. For utensils, always hold them by the handle. And never handle ready-to-eat food with your bare hands. Always use deli sheets, gloves, or tongs. Handling food with tongs or other utensils? Make sure you don't use the same ones to handle different food items. And never, ever use a utensil to handle raw meat, poultry, or seafood, and then reuse it for ready-to-eat food. In short, use separate utensils when serving different food items. It is also important to store serving utensils in food with the handles extended above the rims of the containers. Get all that? Well, there's one more. The towels used to clean up food spills in your operation can actually contaminate food contact surfaces if they're not used correctly. Instead of storing these towels in your apron or uniform pocket, put them in a sanitizer solution when you're not using them. And never use the towels that clean food spills for any other purpose.
Is your brain overflowing? I know mine is. Let's take a learning break and do a couple of review exercises. Take a look at each photo. Which person is handling the food safely? Yep. Food handlers should always use tongs, deli sheets, or gloves to pick up ready-to-eat food. What about this one? You got it. Always use an ice scoop to get ice. Which food is safer? Perfect. just like how this person is holding the plate. Always hold plates by the bottom or edge. How about this one? Right you are. This person is carrying the glasses in a rack, which will help keep them safe. He could also have used a tray. Last one for this series of questions. Who's being safer? Yep, this person is holding the flatware by the handle, which is safe. So, now we need to talk about storage. And it's not food we're looking at, but utensils and equipment. A contaminated bowl can cause an illness just as easily as a contaminated salad, after all. And the same is true for items like disposable napkins and plastic forks. If something is going to touch food, it needs to be stored safely. And some items like chemicals and cleaning supplies require safe storage because you never want them touching food.
How do you prevent contamination during storage? First off, anything that touches food must be stored at least 6 inches, 15 centimeters off the floor. Utensils should be stored with the handles up, so people can easily grab them without touching the part that comes into contact with food. And glasses and cups should be stored upside down on a clean, sanitized surface to keep things from falling into them. What about chemicals and cleaning supplies? There are several things to keep in mind. Even a bottle of sanitizer could contaminate food or equipment if it's stored the wrong way. So you should always store chemicals in their original container. If you do move them to a new container, it has to be labeled with the common name of the chemical. These chemicals need to be put in a designated storage area. And the storage area should be nowhere near food because you don't want to risk getting chemicals on anything that's going to be eaten. Not sure where your designated chemical storage area is? Ask your manager. Cleaning supplies should also be kept well away from food for the same reason. No one wants a dirty mop contaminating their food. And while we're talking about mops, you should never dump mop water or dirty liquids into a toilet or urinal. Not only is it gross, it could contaminate the cleaning equipment and spread pathogens. Only dump mop water and other dirty liquids into a designated service sink with a floor drain. Lastly, you should always dispose of chemicals according to their labels.
Ready for some questions? We're entering our double bonus round, where we'll cover storing utensils, equipment, chemicals, and cleaning supplies. Correct answers in this round will be worth, well, nothing, because there are no points.
Take a look at this photo. Safe storage or not? You caught it. Those cutting boards are on the floor, and any equipment that touches food must be stored at least 6 inches, 15 centimeters off the floor. Try this one. That's right. Glasses and cups should be stored upside down on a clean and sanitized surface. Next one. Safe or not? Exactly. Ice is food, and equipment that touches food, like the ice bucket, must be stored at least 6 inches, 15 centimeters off the floor. What about this one? Correct. Flatware should be stored with the handles up so people can grab it by the handle. What about this chemical? Safe? You got it. Chemicals and cleaning supplies should never be stored near food. Different chemicals? Same question. Yes, indeed. These chemicals are stored safely because they are stored in their original container away from food.
Good job. You're becoming an expert on preventing cross-contamination. But what happens if you notice that cross-contamination has already happened? Let's see if you can answer this question. Let's say that you're in a walk-in cooler and you see that raw meat has dripped onto a case of lettuce. What should you do? Good guess. Notifying your manager is one of the steps. Let's review what to do if cross-contamination occurs in more detail. If you notice that cross-contamination has happened, act right away. Do your best to fix the problem. Set aside the contaminated item so no one can use it. Then ask your manager what to do. We're on to our final big topic for this module, food allergens. Question: what do you think could trigger an allergic reaction to food? Yeah, that would do it. If a person has a food allergy, they can have a reaction by either eating the food directly or eating anything that has touched that food. Kind of scary. When you're talking about food allergens, you're going to hear a lot about the term cross-contact. Any idea what that is? You got it. Cross-contact happens when a food containing an allergen touches another food and their proteins mix. Here's how food allergies work. Some people are allergic to certain types of food. The tiniest speck of a food they are allergic to can make them sick or even cause death. Because of this, you have to strive to keep this food away from these customers. Let's talk about cross-contact. Allergic reactions are caused by proteins called allergens. Some types of food contain allergens. Cheese, for example, contains milk allergens. When a food item containing an allergen comes in contact with another food item and their proteins mix, it's called cross-contact. So everything that touches cheese on a burger becomes contaminated and can cause an allergic reaction even if you remove the cheese itself. Obviously, this can be dangerous for guests with food allergies. So food should be stored and handled in a way that prevents cross-contact. Many of the things you do already, including hand washing and practicing good personal hygiene, will also help prevent cross-contact. What kinds of food do you need to watch out for? Well, people can be allergic to any food, but we're going to focus on a few big ones.
There are just 8 food items that cause the majority of allergic reactions. These are called the Big 8, hence the really big 8 on your screen. You need to know what the Big 8 are and which dishes on your menu contain them. The Big 8 allergens include milk, eggs, soy, fish such as tuna and cod,
Really?
tree nuts such as almonds, walnuts, and pecans, peanuts, crustacean shellfish such as crab, lobster, and shrimp, and wheat.
Now, time for some questions.
Try this one. Does pecan pie contain a Big 8 allergen? Sweet. As its name implies, pecan pie contains pecans, a tree nut, which are a Big 8 allergen. How about this cottage cheese? Yep, cottage cheese contains milk, which is a Big 8 allergen. What about sliced tomatoes? That's right. Sliced tomatoes do not contain a Big 8 allergen. Final question for this section. Does this plain omelet contain a Big 8 allergen? It sure does. Omelets contain eggs, which are a Big 8 allergen.
What does all of this mean? That when a customer says they have a food allergy or a food sensitivity like gluten intolerance, you have to take that seriously. Servers need to be able to answer questions about food allergies and should also know how to prevent cross-contact. Let's watch and see how one server handles a customer with a food allergy.
Click the photo and listen to the server and then answer this question. Did the server do the right thing to prevent an allergic reaction?
A guest told me that he had a dairy allergy and wanted to know if the chicken salad had any dairy in it. I was honest and let him know that I wasn't totally certain, but it was probably fine.
Right. This server made a mistake when he said it was probably fine. It is important for you to know which dishes contain Big 8 allergens. But if you're ever unsure, always ask your manager. You can also suggest menu items that you are certain do not have the food allergen. Same thing. Click the photo to listen to more of the story. Did the server do the right thing to prevent an allergic reaction this time?
The customer with a dairy allergy asked me if the barbecue chicken was safe for him to order. That's our house specialty, and I let him know that the recipe was a secret, so I couldn't tell him.
You're right, and that's strike 2 for our server. He should have told the customer if any ingredients contained allergens, whether or not they're secret. Food should always be honestly presented. Okay, our server isn't doing so well. Think he'll recover? Click the picture.
Finally, the customer asked about the grilled chicken on wild rice. Now, I was positive there was no dairy in that one, so I let him know. He ordered the grilled chicken, and I made sure I noted his allergy on the order. His friend ordered a cheeseburger.
Yep, our server may have started wobbly, but he got it right this time. Just as important, he remembered to clearly identify the allergen special order on the order ticket, which you should always do for a guest with a food allergy. The kitchen staff needs this information. Last one. Click the picture to hear the end of the story.
When the order was ready, I hand-delivered the grilled chicken to the customer with the dairy allergy, and another server brought out the cheeseburger for his friend.
Now he's got it. The server hand-delivered the allergen special order to the guest, and this was done separately from the other food to prevent cross-contact.
If you work in the back of the house, you have to prevent cross-contact when handling an allergen special order. Let's take a look at how cross-contact happens and how to stop it.
If you're preparing an order for a customer with a known food allergy, you have to make sure the allergen is not transferred from a food containing the allergen to the customer's food. Even a small amount of contact can be bad. For example, think about a guest with a shellfish allergy who orders chicken. If the chicken is cooked in a fryer that was used for shrimp, that could cause an allergic reaction. Not good for anyone. With that in mind, here are some things you should do when preparing allergen special orders. First, check recipes and ingredient labels to make sure the allergen is not present. And you need to wash, rinse, and sanitize cookware, utensils, and equipment before prepping the food, including food prep services. Some operations use a separate set of utensils just for allergen special orders. Make sure the allergen doesn't touch anything used to prepare the customer's food, including utensils, equipment, and gloves. You should also wash your hands and change gloves before prepping their food, and use equipment assigned for prepping the allergen special order. That might mean using separate fryers and cooking oils when frying food for customers with food allergies.
Keeping guests with food allergies safe can be life or death, so keep your eyes open for cross-contact. Okay, so here's a question. Let's say you've ordered a salad without almonds for a guest who's allergic to tree nuts. When the salad has been prepped, you see that it has almonds on it. What should you do? Yes, this one. Talking to your manager won't solve everything, but it's a good start. Let's see what else you should do when cross-contact has happened. If food comes into contact with a food allergen, do not serve the food to the customer. Set it aside so it cannot be used. Alert your manager, who will tell you what to do next. Being careful is vital, but you still might have to deal with an allergic reaction at some point. How should you handle it?
An allergic reaction is like any other emergency. If you see a customer having a severe allergic reaction to food, first call the emergency number in your area and then tell your manager.
Well, that's it for food allergies. All that's left is to answer a few questions to see what you've learned in this module. Let's do it. Which item should be rejected when receiving? Great job. Always reject food if the packaging is dirty, water stained, leaking, or discolored. How can you prevent cross-contamination when storing food? Yep, that's the one. Storing food this way will help prevent cross-contamination. How can you prevent cross-contamination when prepping raw meat and ready-to-eat food? Cleaning and sanitizing the work surfaces between prepping each item will prevent cross-contamination. What should you use to scoop ice from an ice bin? You got it. This is the best way to prevent cross-contamination. Where should you store chemicals and cleaning supplies? Yep, you got it. Always store chemicals and cleaning supplies in a designated storage area. Which of these three are big 8 food allergens? Nicely done. These are 3 of the big 8 allergens.